In this video, I'm covering the 5 critical components of a high-performing SaaS sales pipeline. Most large SaaS companies are built on sales. And if you don't have a high-converting, high-performing sales team and a sales process, it's unlikely that you will grow quickly. I'm Rob Walling. I'm a startup founder with multiple exits, author of 3 books about building startups, and an investor in more than 100 companies. So first I want to break down high-touch SaaS versus low-touch, or high-touch sales funnels versus low-touch to no-touch. High-touch is when you have to do a lot of qualification, and when you are doing demos, sometimes 1 or more call closes. You could say a 1 call, a 2 call, a 5 call close, and then you go through procurement, and eventually you're able to close the deals. Low touch or no touch SaaS funnels or sales pipelines is really when you're not doing much sales at all. You basically have a marketing pipeline that brings people to your website. Oftentimes you have a lower priced product and you have a very wide funnel. So you have a lot of traffic and you're just looking at converting from one step to the next, from someone becoming a visitor to becoming a trial to converting to paid, and then not churning in the long run. And so today, since we are diving into sales, we're not going to be talking about that low touch, no touch model, but we're going to be looking at the 5 critical components of a high performing SaaS sales pipeline when you're doing medium and high touch sales. The first component is, of course, leads. These are businesses that are interested in your product and are folks who may want to buy it. I think about leads in 2 buckets. There are outbound leads that you generate by doing email outreach, LinkedIn outreach. Used to be cold calling, but that's not done so much with SaaS these days unless your businesses are brick and mortar and the easiest way to reach them is via phone. So those are outbound leads. Inbound leads are those generated by things like SEO, content, partnerships, integrations, pay-per-click. There's a whole list of marketing approaches, many of which we cover in depth on this channel, youtube.com/microconf. Thanks for coming. So without leads, you have no one interested in your product. And the first step is either doing that outbound outreach or building a marketing engine that allows people inbound to find you and start evaluating your software. The second component of a high-performing SaaS sales pipeline is qualification. And this is where you take a lead, someone who is interested in your software, and you qualify them. You try to figure out, are they a good fit? And we'll look at a couple questions in a second about how you can go about qualifying. There's a couple roles at larger companies. Once you get past the point where the founder is doing the qualification, there's a couple roles that do this. The SDR, which is a sales development rep, and a BDR, which is a business development rep. So SDRs typically qualify inbound leads, and BDRs typically qualify those outbounds. Depending on your process, you may have one or both at a large organization. Now, I'm going to be honest. If you're watching this video, you're probably the founder or maybe, the first of 10, 20 employees at a SaaS company. In that case, you probably won't have a lot of this differentiation because you just don't have the staff to do it. Oftentimes you're doing it yourself, whether you're the founder or whether you're hired as a salesperson, you're also going to be qualifying leads, especially in the early stage. And so questions you're asking yourself or you're asking your prospects at this time are things like, do they have the budget? Are they a good fit for our product? Will they be successful in the long run using our product? Because if the answer to any of those is no, then you're probably going to want to pass on them. They're not a qualified prospect if they aren't going to be successful and don't have the budget to pay. The third component is usually some type of sales presentation or demo. You might hear this called the pitch or the demo. And this is usually given by the founder in the early days and then later handed off to a salesperson. Now in SaaS, salespeople are usually referred to as AEs or account executives. And the way I like to think about SaaS sales is something I learned from my co-founder with TinySeed. He thinks of them as a high-paid consultant who isn't getting paid. Basically, you are an expert in this space because you know the problems, you know the available solutions, and you know the pros and cons of you and all of your competitors, or at least you should. Versus the person buying your software is probably only going to buy this once or a few times in their career. And so they're not all the way up to speed like you are because you live in this space day to day. And so think of yourself as that consultant trying to find the optimal solution for your prospect. And hopefully that optimal solution is your product. And so in terms of your demos should be a lot shorter than you usually think they are. There should be a lot of questions coming from you to the prospect, to the lead about what they need, what they're looking for, the problem they are trying to solve, because people are going to use your product differently, and finding that out from them up front and then tailoring the demo to them is usually the best way to go. And if you can't demo your product in, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes, you're probably going about it wrong. You're probably getting too far into the weeds into what your product can do rather than what it can do for this prospect. Component number 4 is the close. This is also usually in the early days handled by the founder, and then later on, a salesperson is someone who is trying to drive it to close because salespeople are compensated based on deals that they close. They earn a commission. This often requires a lot of follow-up, which means you'll want a CRM system to keep track of the stage that any given lead is in, because once you have 10 or 20 prospects and your sales cycle is 2 to 5 months, you just forget to follow up. And so having a system like a Trello or a Close.com or Salesforce, this allows you to stay organized. It can take many months for larger organizations to purchase. And if you're selling to schools or governments, you can have incredibly long sales cycles. I've heard folks spend a couple years trying to get large construction firms signed and onboarded. Your pricing has to be high enough such that this headache is worth it. And this whole process of hiring SDRs and BDRs and AEs, it has to make sense. You have to have enough profit in your pricing. And the fifth and final component of the sales pipeline is onboarding. This is where the AE, the account executive, hands off the customer to your customer success person. And they take over because they specialize in doing this. They specialize in onboarding versus an AE who is incentivized by commission to close deals. So they're not going to invest the time it takes to get someone properly onboarded. If you think about churn being the death of SaaS, this step is crucial. Onboarding is crucial because if the person or the business isn't successful with your product, they will cancel. And like I said, churn, which is cancellations, is the death of SaaS. So having a seamless handoff from AEs to customer success managers, as well as having a customer success team that is really good at onboarding people and getting them up to speed and getting them so that they are successful with your product in that first month or two. It means they'll stick around for the long term, and that's how you build an amazing SaaS company. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button below and subscribe to this channel. We have a ton of videos like this coming out every month, from these tactical videos to live streams to conference talks. We have an amazing community over at microconf.com. I'll see you in the next video.